you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Trying to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away, as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music.
Sweetheart, we got some dancing to do.
Hello everybody, welcome to MusiCast. Part-time podcaster Matt Guy here. Very excited to be in your ears once again. This happened last time and we didn't.
Every time.
Hello everyone. We were talking about pollen counts, so this is how thrilling our day has been. Hello everyone, Stu here.
Yeah, it's proper bank holiday Sunday vibes, isn't it, I think, today?
I think the bank holidays only really matter when you're in your early 20s, so you can have like an extra night to go out. Because it doesn't mean a fat. I have to go to work tomorrow morning, so it especially doesn't mean a fat lot to me. But do bank holidays mean much in your respective worlds?
Well, I don't work Mondays, do I? So every week's a bank holiday for me.
True.
Yeah, whereas because I don't work Fridays, I do a 3-day week, so it's excellent. I've had a long weekend. And then I'll be doing 3 days and then I'm off again for next weekend. So it's kind of nice, but it isn't the same, is it? As when I used to work at JJB Sports and you'd have Thursday night out, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then it was ladies' night at, down the waterfront.
It was.
They're nice. Yeah, great days.
That was halcyon days, though. Well, it is a MusiCast episode, and we've got a few bits to talk about and a new feature that we're going to bring in as well. But yeah, really nice to be back. Hopefully be back into regular scheduling sooner rather than later, because I do miss the podcasting and stuff. Just need to get a bit more sanity and schedule back in my life, to be honest. And Stu said this months and months and months ago about mystery illnesses when you've got a child. And I don't know how, because he's gone nowhere, that I haven't been with him. But I'm been struck down with a bit of the lurgy. So it's not like your sound that's off and more trebly or bassy than usual. It's just that I've got a face full of snot.
Do we need to insert the Dan WhatsApp message of me being right again here? Because I can't help being right. These things just happen.
You know what the worst for it is as well? I played in the charity game at Molyneux for Wolves Fancast the other day, and that was basically killed me off. Because cardio wise, I wasn't really unfit anyway, and then my lung capacity's gone through the toilet, and all I could just feel was I'm going to die on the pitch, and that's probably how I want to go anyway. Not on that day. Well, there we go. Anyway, to news then. So there's a few different bits I want to go over on this episode. And tickets are a really hot topic anyway across the spectrum of kind of podcasts that we're related to. So if you do listen to Wolves Fancast, there's a whole hoopla about Wolves season tickets and a huge increase in prices across the board, including disabled tickets and under 14s, 21s and the like. But the Black Keys, not like a huge band, or at least not over here, a modicum of success. They've had to cancel pretty much their entire US tour due to low sales. And they've had arena dates at over $100 for basic tickets. And I guess I just want to lead into the chat about the price of gigs and merch and stuff like that, really, because it's different for film and it's different for sport. Because generally speaking, I think if you go see a band, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a good performance out of them. I think the hit ratio for music is probably a lot higher than it is for a film that you don't know much about, or a sports team that will inevitably let you down. So therefore, do musicians, let's put it right, the venues charge a high rental fee and blah, 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 blah. Do musicians have a right to charge higher fees for a return on what is generally going to be a decent product, Andy? Or where do you stand on like ticket prices, and then like everything, cost of living and everything else? Are people going to price themselves out of being able to go to these kind of things?
I think it is going to hit a ceiling eventually. Like, it's going to have to. There's going to be a point where it breaks and something's going to have to happen. But we've seen it time and time again in the music industry. Like, vinyl sort of ended up eating itself and was replaced with cassettes and CDs, and then that became such a shit show when it came to the pricing. Like, single albums were pushing 20 quid at one point. It was appalling. And then you'd get the rise of Napster, so people was just taking it at source and paying nothing for it. So that ended up pushing the money towards the gigs. And I think that live music has sort of carried on that trend ever since then, really. With the rise of piracy, I think they've had to make their money somehow. And like, don't get me wrong, I don't have any access to any band's contracts, but I imagine there is a provision where whoever is the record label probably gets a bigger cut now of the live stuff than they've ever done. So I think that the bands, in order to try and make a living, and they'd make a good living, there's no arguments about it, but I bet it's not as good as it was, 15, 20 years ago, unless you're Taylor Swift, for example, who can charge 400 quid a ticket for, and not, it's not arenas, it's stadiums, isn't it, at that?
Yeah.
So it feels like everything's moved up a step somewhat. So I feel like the bands that we would have seen at like maybe the Little Civic now are doing the Civic or the Wolverhampton. If this is a very Wolverhampton specific example I'm giving here, but it feels like everyone has moved up from your arenas now to your stadiums. And I think the prices have gone with that. And eventually it's going to eat itself, because there's going to be a breaking point, because Taylor Swift charging 400. The next one coming through, so someone like Olivia Rodrigo, who, I hands up, I'm a big fan. I think she's tremendous. She's charging fucking 180 quid, and she's got 2 albums out. I'm not being funny, but that's daylight robbery. But eventually she's going to be, well, I want to charge Taylor Swift money, so Taylor Swift's going to want to charge Taylor Swift plus money, and eventually people are just going to say enough's enough, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Stu, from your point of view, and we discussed a little bit about in our group chat about kind of merch and stuff and how extortionate that is. Like, so, and I'll mention Ice Nine Kills a few times in this episode because it was the inspiration for some of the questions. So I went to go see Ice Nine Kills last week. Great gig at the new and improved reopened Civic, and I've got to say that as a venue shits all over the O2 Academy or whatever it's called now. Like, the layout of it is so much better. The facilities are really good. We were on the circle, so you got like the top, I can't remember what the top row's called, but then you got the circle in the middle and then the floor. And even though we were one of the seats closest to the wall, really, we still had a good view of the stage. And when you're in the O2 and you're on the bottom rung, it's like the ceiling's really low on the sides and there's loads of barriers in the way, like you're at Goodison Park. Whereas at the Civic, it seems loads more open. and no matter where you are in that building, I think you've got a good view of the stage. So I couldn't go to the Hives in the end, but I know Tara went to see the Hives, and so I'm sure she can comment on how it is as a venue. But yeah, it really does shit all over the O2 Academy. So they've done a good job for all the time and fast that it took to get it reopened again, and it took fucking forever. They've done a good job of getting it back to where it was. But anyway, I digress. Ice Nine Kills, I say they were charging. The venue often dictates the price of the merch. However, Ice Nine Kills has the same price for the merch on their website, so take that as you will. £40 they wanted for a t-shirt, a tour t-shirt. So, I mean, where are you with this, Stu? You know, is it one of those, well, if you've got the money to spend it, it's your money, pay what you want, and if you're willing, if you're happy to pay it, or you know, where do you stand on this?
I mean, I've kind of flipped and flopped with this kind of thing before, because I mean, I'm guessing that was like a 100% cotton t-shirt as well, with a bit of screen printed on it, as tour t-shirts normally are. Is that worth 40 quid? Obviously not, but it's, you can probably easily go outside and, like we used to do, you had the guy on the street selling for like tenner, but it's not the official thing, isn't it? And I think Andy's right. You look at it now, and Spotify is basically a promotion tool for the gigs, and that's how they're making the money. So, if you care about that band or that person or whatever, and you want to put a bit of extra money in their pocket, then buying some real merch, I mean, fair enough. I mean, just a complete coincidence. I bought the new Jets jersey today, the new green one. When Andy knows how much these things. Do you know how much they are? Right. So
No idea.
So there's 3 tiers of them. So there's a replica version, then there's a middle version called the Fuse, and then there's the real one. The real one that the players wear is £385.
Oh my God.
So today I bought the middle one. Okay. The middle one, I mean, bear in mind these things last for 5-6 years, something like that, depending on team. So they don't change them every year. It was 155 quid, which sounds ridiculous, but they're not thin material that you can see through hanging up against the window. It's proper material. I could have got it off DHgate. I've ordered one of them off DHgate, the black one, just out of curiosity, because I couldn't afford to buy all of them. But I thought, well, actually, I'm not going to go to a game, because obviously they're in New York. Maybe October, when they're in London, we'll see. But from my point of view, I thought, okay, I'll do something, and I'll buy the official one, even though it's going to cost me an arm and a leg. So, from my point of view, I've done it for that. So, if you like that band, and you come out of the venue, and there's a 40 quid t-shirt, or they probably don't do DVDs anymore, do they? Or CDs or something. or a little tankard with a logo on, or a mug or whatever. They're mug for 20 quid. Would you? I might, depending on who it was. I mean, I bought this mug of Judah, the Express Star podcast mug, for £5. So, and that was just one of them things that, yeah, I appreciate the show. Why not? Bit of money in their coffers. So
I'd see you coming a mile off, Stu.
Yeah, of course they do.
Money bags.
This is why Jeff Shee's got me over the barrel again.
Oh, God. You know, it's like another thing that I've noticed about gigs and stuff recently. It's a real Americanism. This is the kind of VIP upgrade that has plagued. So I noticed it with Fozzy and Chris Jericho as Fozzy first more than anybody. Then more and more bands are kind of doing like VIP upgrades. Watch the sound check, private gig beforehand, and all this kind of stuff. And I get it, like any extra cash, like I get it. And some bands, Ghost are one of them, who I really like. Ice Like Kills are another one, are very much t-shirt and merch companies that happen to be a band at the same time. Yeah. And I think that's what you're going to get more and more. Metallica, exactly that. You know what I mean? Like, Metallica was selling the live versions of the gigs 20 years ago that you could buy the gig that you went to and buy the live version of it independently. Which I thought was way ahead of the curve. Mm-hmm. Because, like, why wouldn't you want the live thing? Because you buy a live album, you know, you buy... I don't know why Status Quo have come to my head, but if you buy Status Quo's live, it's live for the most part, but it's edited in post, and any major fuck-ups are tinkered with here and there, but to buy that is as live as you're going to get. So, yeah, I think... Because we were talking, weren't we, about, like, Furiosa and the ticket sales for that and June's ticket sales and everything else, and the live medium of, like, customers that go to these events seems to be taking a dip across the board, like, everywhere for everything. So I guess people have got to really have decisions to make about where they spend their money, Andy, and what kind of they do. So, it is the allure of a band enough now, do you think, for gigs, especially then when bands and artists are charging into 3 figures just to go see their shows?
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, someone like, to go back to Taylor Swift or Billy Joel, for example, for myself, they've got some kind of legendary status, these people. Some of them do. So they can get away with it, because how many times are you going to get to see Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden? Well, you're not, because he's stopping next month, I think it is. So you get it done while you can. Taylor Swift, I don't think, has toured for 5 years, possibly longer. I think it was pre-pandemic was the last one. She's not someone who's doing the rounds every single week like other bands. So some of them do have this allure, but if you're Chris Jericho and Fozzy, who will play any old shit, it seems, does he have the allure? Probably not, to be charging 40, 50 quid a pop. So I think if you want to be someone who's special, you have to be a little bit rare almost. Whereas if you're out front and centre every single chance you get, you can't be charging a lot of money because I could see you at any point. I think you have to weigh up that, making it a once-in-a-lifetime event.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them don't. Some of them, like I said, they will be there every week. Some of these cunts will be there fucking opening the next Merry Hill car park because it's just an excuse to be in front of people. So I think you do have to weigh up that it does need to be an event. And I think that's the same with cinema now, which I am going to talk about this on one of the upcoming episodes next month, I think. But there is something about cinema this past year which has changed. If you take out Barbie and Oppenheimer, it doesn't feel like event cinema really exists all that much anymore. Like some films that you expect to be big hitters this year haven't done it. So there is a missing ingredient somewhere, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, talking about events, an influencer's dream, Glastonbury is only a week away. And whilst I wouldn't go to Glastonbury, it's not really my cup of tea artist-wise. I know there's huge variations on who's there, and I think a lot of it, I wanted to say Lollapalooza, but is that the one that's on The Simpsons?
No, I think it's a real one as well.
Okay.
It was on The Simpsons, but it is real as well.
It's one of those. Coachella? Coachella, that's the one I meant anyway. Which is very much like a status thing. Like you go, you take your photos, you dress up, and the bands are kind of not an inconvenience, but they just happen to be there as well. I think Glastonbury is that in a way. It's all a bit hippy dippy with a huge carbon footprint. But anyway, I digress. But my question to you would be, who needs to headline Glastonbury before they snuff it, who hasn't already, Stu?
I mean, I had to double check just to make sure, but our boy Robert Plant, maybe on his own, or or ideally with Led Zeppelin, but that's never going to happen, is it? So just Robert Plant. I know he did that. He did a stage with some woman last year or the year before, didn't he? But not headlining. So I know he's as a group they've had the issues with that place before, a long time before we were alive. But yeah, Led Zeppelin, why not? Did that come back to was it a tour or was it 2 nights? I can't remember. It was very many shows anyway, so it'd be just something special for him to do it. Why not?
Yeah, I think that's a good shout actually. I never put that through the line, but oddly enough, I tried to use Kashmir, the one that they play at Molyneux, for a story on Instagram the other day, and their entire catalogue, bar Kashmir, is available to use on Instagram, and I couldn't work out why, and if there's some kind of copyright problem there or not, I don't know. What about you, Andy? Do you think should headline Glastonbury before they call it a musical date or die more erratically?
I put down, my first one was Burt Bacharach because he got a lot of songs I think a lot of people would love, probably in the legend slot. But then I found out he died last year, so that was not going to happen. Yeah, I didn't realise. I thought Burt Bacharach was still with us, but he died February 2023. So, yeah. So I've got Madonna because I was kind of surprised she's never done it. It's not someone I would be asked about seeing, but I feel like there's a certain group of people who would love that one. But Aerosmith, I feel like they've got quite a big catalogue that would really suit, Glasto main stage on a balmy, probably pissing down with rain night. But yeah, I was quite surprised Aerosmith hadn't had a run at Glasto.
Yeah, it just surprised me actually, to be fair. And it's made for the I Don't Want to Miss a Thing is made for that BBC package where they'll with all the lights and everything else, and people would watch it to hear that. I think that would be a good shout, to be fair. Wonder if they could get Run DMC over to help. Run DMC even going anymore? I don't know. For this way,
one of them's dead.
Oh, different. That doesn't help things, does it? Really? So I know that this person has played before, and I don't know if there's enough want for it. But I was going to say Tom Jones because I really like Tom Jones, believe it or not, and I think given the gives him the right amount of the whole album he did with like Sex Bomb and all the covers and stuff like that. So get the people on stage as well to kind of pad it out a little bit. I think you could get a really good set out of that. Like, my mum's seen Tom Jones like 20 years ago, said it was one of the most unbelievable gigs she ever went to. And I think, crooner maybe, but I think it's kind of made for that harking back. Yeah, it would be Legend of Slot, but as a headliner, I think. I mean, this is where like Tom Jones is like I don't think we're ever going to be big enough to have to worry about libel here, so I'm okay to say this. Like, in case he was ever involved in Operation U-Tree or something like that. Like, that may be out there. I don't know, allegedly. But I'm sure he's a rotter in some capacity, like everybody is. But I think he'd be a good choice, Tom Jones. And I think everybody knows at least one or two, don't they, Tom Jones?
I saw him. I think he was the second gig I ever went to back in probably 2000, I think it was, when I saw him at the NEC. And yeah, he was great. But on a really good, fun show. And like you're right, everyone young and old knows a bit of Tom Jones, don't they? So that would be a great night, I think.
You a Tom Jones fan, Stu?
Well, I don't know who isn't, really. Yeah, he's an entertainer, isn't he? That's the thing. You said it right. He appeals to everyone because you have got the stuff that he did in the late 90s, early 2000s for our kind of generation. And you obviously got the Knickers and Bra generation of the 60s and 70s of people bombarded him. So yeah, I don't know why he hasn't really.
I don't know either. But I was looking down the list of headliners, and yeah, he's definitely played a few times. But I think as one kind of like last dancing before he goes off into the sunset kind of thing, I think would be. I'm not saying he's on the level of Elton John in terms of fame or anything like that, but if you're allowing yourself that kind of artist, at least one of your three headliners, I think you can squeeze Tom Jones in.
Yeah,
at some point. So on to kind of a slightly topical one, or at least it will be in 2 weeks. We're very close to the Euros, and it feels good to be able to have another team let us down and not just Wolverhampton Wanderers. As an aside, Stu, I wanted to ask this actually. I was in Sainsbury's earlier, and I saw somebody wearing a football jersey, if you will. Is it the done thing to have your own name on the back of an American football jersey?
American one?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got my name on the back of this one. So,
but like, is it the same kind of thing? Like, here, like it's really accepted that you'd get your name on the back of it. Is that the same kind of thing in America? Is that like a done thing?
I think you'd probably be murdered.
Really?
Yeah, it's not really. There's an option when you go on the Fanatics website for custom. But I've been watching the NFL for 15, 20 years. I've never ever seen anyone in the stands with a name that's not a player's, or like Grandad number 1 or something like that, or Pleasure Dome 69 like the guy at Molyneux. But I've never seen it, so I don't know. But it doesn't seem to be the done thing to do. Other than the Boy Green, obviously. There's every team's got their hip influencer, haven't they? And they're going to have theirs. But as a normal person, I wouldn't have thought. So it's more just players' hate, really.
Mm. Oh, fair enough. I didn't know if that was like, because, God, you can design your own shoes now and put everything on. And this is like something that probably existed about 15 years ago. And I'm saying I'm really old and fuddy-duddy here. But like the amount of customization, you just thought that would have entered the American sphere of sports, but maybe not. Maybe not. Anyway, back to sports and a sport musical related question. Simply, Stu, what is the best England national team song ever created?
I mean, there's the three obvious ones, isn't there? So you take World in Motion, Three Lions and Vindaloo away. I'm going to go with On the Ball by Anson Deck because I don't know why. But you start humming that song and you won't get it. I know it's not originally by them, but it's a cover from an old 70s. I think it was a TV show, maybe ITV. But yeah, that song is strangely hypnotic. You watch it, you watch the video for it, and it has got a commentary from the Germany 5-1 game, obviously, which makes it better. But yeah, Anton Deck On the Ball. It will be in the Euros playlist for the first week and a half until the disappointment sets in. But hey, at least England are there, unlike some other silly countries. So it's just like
that song.
Mentioning no names.
That song has got it's the easiest hook in the world, isn't it? You hear it once and you do remember it. And it's not a good song, but I see where you're coming from.
What about you, Andy? What do you think is the best England national song out there?
Well, I only had two down, World in Motion and Three Lions are a given. Vindaloo it's not really a very good song. So I thought I'll take them as a given, I'll look for something else. And I didn't know, but our very own Slade have got a song called Give Us a Goal, 1978, and it sounds like a proper Slade song as well. Proper Noddy's vocals, big guitars. We'll beat ya, defeat ya, we're ready to roll, stop your fancy fooling around and give us a goal. And it's a proper fucking banger, this song. I'd never even heard of it until earlier this afternoon. And I don't know why, because it is fantastic.
It's not to the tune of that meat pie sausage roll, come on Lincoln, give us a goal. Like the chant that it gets done in the stadiums, is it?
It might be. I can't. Potentially, maybe that's where it came from. But yeah, it was really good. I like Slade anyway, and it sounds like a proper Slade song. If you took out the football lyrics, you'd immediately recognise it as a Slade song.
That's mad. I didn't know they did one either. So again, doing the same. I mean, we all know it's World in Motion. Everybody, that's the actual answer. But yeah, we wouldn't get very far as a podcast if we just gave the answer. Interestingly, though, what do you think? The fact that only 6 players turned up on the day, so that John Barnes rap was a 1 in 6 chance. I guess I don't know if he was always scheduled to do it or not.
No, he wasn't.
How different the world. I say the world, and I mean the world. Would have been if John Barnes didn't do that rap, because it's affected so much about every bit of England coverage there's probably ever been at a major tournament. That's been involved in some way. So I wonder what, there's a universe out there where he didn't do that rap and it was Gaza that did it. And it's just a completely different tune or atmosphere to it.
I'm just going to check this. I think Peter Beardsley was supposed to do it. I'm sure I've heard that before. John Barnes rap original.
I mean, that says something off Atletico Minsk, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The idea of Peter Beardsley doing a rap.
But he does it everywhere, doesn't he? He does it every opportunity to do it. He loves it.
Whoa,
he's more famous for that than he is for playing football at this point, isn't he?
But I don't know if this is considered an England football song or not, or whether it's because I've got a feeling it was just on the coverage for Euro 2004, but altogether now by
The Farm.
The Farm, yeah. I think that's a class tune. I'm going to sneeze. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, that in my head sticks out, and I think like I've always remembered it being on adverts and all sorts of football, and it being one of those like anthemic kind of songs that get the spirit going, which I think is difficult for football sometimes when it's at an international level. You don't feel as attached to the team. One of the things that I'd really remember, or I'd always remember, is I think it was McDonald's did an advert run, and it was people singing football chants to like really inane things. Like some guy was going past in a barge and he was singing "You're Going Home" in a painted narrowboat, and it was just stuff like that. And it was just different adverts like that, and you do get some really good stuff around the major tournaments for England. But yeah, that song is up there for me as well, to be fair. But I think most people would probably agree it's World in Motion as the top one.
Speaking of like times that football has done weird things in videos, have you ever seen the video of the Football Hooligans Choir and they're singing Truly Madly Deeply? Sam?
No, I haven't.
It's amazing.
Incredible. It's just so, I'll send you a link. It's brilliant.
Yeah, they're standing around. They're just standing in this like your normal London corner bar kind of place, and they're all standing around it, facing away, and they're all doing it like a cappella. Are they? It's amazing. And then at the end, they just all shuffle away. They don't say anything else.
It's tremendous. Like it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It's excellent.
I'll have to
put it in the group now. Yeah.
So question number 2. So we talk often on the podcast about jumping the shark and Fast and Furious in space and all this kind of stuff about when, enough is enough. But I don't think people really talk about artists doing it, jumping the shark. And I think with music especially, people change with the times and artists can't stay the same the whole way through their career, especially if that career pans over 20, 30, 40 years, and they'll change their sound accordingly. But which artists, I'll start with you, Andy, their jump the shark moment has been the most damning for their legacy that's maybe caused huge backlash with the fans, or it's just turned people off them, irreparably?
I did have 2, but one of them might be yours because I'm sure we've spoke about them before, so I'll do the other one. Genesis. Like there's a very defined split when you speak to anyone who knows about Genesis. There's the Peter Gabriel Genesis and there's the Phil Collins Genesis. The Peter Gabriel Genesis is very much, prog rock. They were prog rock but cool, which is weird because prog rock I don't think has ever really been cool with fucking Rick Wakeman and the likes. People love that version of Genesis, but then when you get to probably about 1980, I think it was, and Phil Collins comes in and all of a sudden they've become something of a joke almost because it's all mega cheesy stuff. It is fun if you're in Reflex or somewhere, don't get me wrong. But, you wouldn't get Peter Gabriel's Genesis in there. You'd only get Phil Collins. I think any fan I've ever spoke to of Genesis, they very much make a distinction of which Genesis they like. It's almost like they're 2 bands and you can only like one or the other, but you can't like both. It's very odd for one entity.
Interesting. Let's try and listen to. I can't say I'm too equipped with knowledge about Genesis, so I'll have to listen to a bit more about that. Stu, what about you?
I mean, I'm very much Phil Collins Genesis, just to put it out there. The first one that I thought of was U2. I mean, growing up, U2 were like, people liked U2 and they were respectable, like Joshua Tree and all that stuff. But it seemed like round about when the Premiership used A Beautiful Day, so after that, everyone hated them. And then obviously years later when they did that stupid thing for iTunes, which auto-loaded that album onto it, something for iPhones or something, wasn't it? I can't remember. And they've become a bit of a kind of everyone hates U2 now. But there was definitely a time in the 90s where people liked them. And I can't think of a time of what it was, what they did. If it was Bono related, probably. But it's definitely seemed round about when the Premiership started that's when people turned. Maybe because you were hearing it every week. Who knows? But yeah, U2.
They become something of like a bit of a parody, haven't they now, U2, where I think like your diehard fans love them and will literally and I mean like city hop but in the European sense of the word, they're gigs and they'll go to as many as possible. But I think Bono himself hasn't helped matters there, and they're kind of seen now as a bit of a joke. But like their fans love them, really love them. But I think in the grand scheme of the musical world, they're a bit, we laugh at them a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I think there was a part of them that, a bit like Genesis, really, they've got a point where they very much dropped off. I remember they released the album, it was the greatest hits, and it was only the ones they released up until like about 92, I think it was. And that's really good. And then I think it probably about 2000 was the point where it fell off. Because I remember they had a song on Friends, With or Without You, when Ross was trying to get Rachel back. And they had like this mini renaissance of their older stuff. But yeah, people hate U2. Like Nickelback level hate U2. They really do.
See, I think Nickelback have got some good faith back now. I think it's less cool to hate on Nickelback these days.
It's Creed now.
It is Creed now. Yeah, it is. Like Nickelback have just done a UK tour, and it's gone. Like I saw some footage from it. It looked class. I think it was just one of those that like they got caught in like a few bad films where some films said it was gay to listen to Nickelback, and that was it. He was set for life. That they were, you're going to struggle with them, I guess. I don't know. Now, there's a couple for me that jump out off the page. Your one that you were going to say was Arctic Monkeys, I imagine, Andy?
No, it was Kings of Leon.
Oh, God. Well, fuck me. Yeah, I didn't even think about them, but yeah, they definitely did it. But Arctic Monkeys are up there for me, much to Kim from Wolves Fancast. But they, especially with that, so they had Base Tranquility, or was it called Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, whatever that was, like a step away into like jazz and like smooth crooner lounge music out of nowhere. But they had a few bits on it that were okay. But I think an album's never good when you can't actually tell when a song's finished unless you're looking at your car stereo. Like, it's never a good, like, sign. And then they brought out The Car, which was, like, more or less the same. And then he's proper gone as a crooner, Alex Turner, and his whole personality's changed. And then they did Glastonbury and that as them in their current album's persona. And people fucking shat on it, so I hated it. I remember it, man. It was brutal as well to see the kind of feedback on it. The one I thought about first, the one that jumped out first and foremost, was David Bowie. On the back of like Ziggy Stardust and everything else, and one of those larger than life personalities and everything else, like throughout the 70s, and you had like Station with the Thin White Duke and everything else. He brought out Never Let Me Down, and it was kind of like when Kiss lost the face paint. And then they went all weird, like about spiders and stuff. It was just a real disappointment, and he hated the album as well. Like, he really was disgusted. I don't know if this is when he was like off his tits all the time in Germany or whatever, but he said, I felt dissatisfied with everything I was doing, and eventually it started showing in my work. It was such an awful album, is what he put out himself. And I think, like, when you get to a point of stardom, it doesn't matter. Like, I think it gets to the point where when you've then become a nostalgia act, you can then just rely on your older stuff, and then it's okay again, like so many bands do. The other one that jumped out was Metallica, when they brought out Load and Reload, which were like country western meets rock. And they were great. And if it wasn't Metallica, they'd be like critically acclaimed, and people would think they were the greatest albums ever of that genre. But because it wasn't thrash metal, people shat all over it. But then they brought out Saint Anger. And the problem with Saint Anger is they were trying to create an album and show the musical world that they were Metallica, they were metal, and they're going to do a heavy album, but they're not going to have any solos in it. And they're going to have the drums sound like they're hitting an empty hollow tin can, and it's just an abomination on the ears. It's really bad. Like I like it as a piece, but in the grand scheme of things, like, it was, people shat on it so much. And like there's an accompanying documentary, Some Kind of Monster, on Netflix, which follows Metallica's recording process for this album, and you can just tell straight away why it's so shit, because it's a band that like hate each other at the time. One of them tries to suggest bringing a therapist in, and like James, the frontman's like, no, this is gay. I hate everything about this. I'm going to Alaska to shoot some bears, and then he goes off, and then like it's just, honestly, if you want to see like the downfall of like a band, and like they're the biggest rock band in the world, and you'd think that like it's not, they're not children, but it's just it's a really, really good documentary, to be fair, but it's like an uncomfortable watch at the same time, because it's they clearly don't want the cameras there, but they've signed on to this probably for the part of the label and stuff like that, so they've got to have them there. The therapist is doing their editing. The producer is doing the bass for the album because they don't have a bassist yet, and they want him out by the end. And it's just like, if you like watching uncomfortable watches, it's not like the uncut gems of the music documentary world or anything, but it's definitely worth a watch for sure. Okay, so the third and final question before we move into album club. This is based on you, Andy, as we've spoken separately about The Sopranos, and we talked about TV theme songs. And now TV theme songs are not quite the same as they were. It's a bit of a like an old geriatric kind of thing to say, but I personally can't remember the last theme tune that was like mega long in length for like an opening title credit kind of thing. So what's the perfect length for a TV theme song, Stu? Are the days of Sopranos, Game of Thrones, The Wire, are they over now? Because there's no need to sit through a title credits, because on Netflix you just press skip intro and that's that. Are we at the end? Have we passed the golden era of TV theme tunes?
Probably. I don't do it though, unless, because I normally only watch like 2 or 3 in one go. I won't do any more than that, because you can't. I don't take it in. If you go past that level and you're binging too much, it don't work for me. So I always, I don't know why, without fail, watch the first one, and I always watch the credit to the first one. It's just one of them things. I don't know where it started from. I don't need it, obviously, especially if you're on like episode 6 of 10 and you've already seen it 3 times. You know where it's coming, but I don't know. Maybe it's just a legacy thing that, oh yeah, well, this is how it used to be, so I want to keep it like this. But when I talked about Blue Lights the last few weeks, brilliant show on iPlayer. The title thing is about 6 beats. It's about 3 seconds, and that's it. It just comes up, dun, 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 dun. Blue Lights. Then it carries on. That's all it is. And that's on iPlayer. And no one's going to remember that as a theme tune, because it isn't one. It's just a noise. So when you look at the classic ones like Game of Thrones, and they did have the whole thing of each season was different because it showed you what was going to be happening and where they were going to go. I like that. But I can also understand why they wouldn't do it anymore, because what's the point? Because no one watches it.
Pardon me. I have been watching Dexter, as you both know, and there was a really fun bit in Dexter. Like, spoilers shouldn't matter now. Dexter's been out ages, and it's not about the newest one because I haven't seen it yet. But Dexter has a baby with Rita, and like they changed the title sequence to him like being tired, and all of the stuff that was like dead intricate, he's changed for him having a baby. And I thought that was really fun, a nice little twist on the opening credits, which you don't see that often. But Andy, you were talking about the Sopranos and the theme song, and you haven't heard anything like that since, really, in ages. So talk to me about that and like the perfect length for an opening credit theme tune.
I think there's a few things at play with the recession of music theme tunes. So I remember I was listening to the Fake Doctors, Real Friends, the Scrubs Rewatch Show podcast, and they was talking about there's 3 different versions of the opening theme tune. So there's one which everyone knows, the main one, where it's I can do this all on my own. They did an extended one where they had like the janitor and a few other side characters in there. And then they had one which is literally just Zach Braff putting the X-ray on the screen, which, again, is quite a famous one. And the reason they did that is purely because on network TV, you had 23 minutes to tell your story. So they would put as much story in at the expense of a theme. So if the theme takes, say it's a minute, if we can cut that down to 10 seconds, we can get an extra 50 seconds of the plot in here, and we can tell another, 2 or 3 jokes. So I think the old model of television is partly why it's sort of moved away from that long form opening credits, purely to pack as much story in there, especially when you're talking about comedies. But conversely, something like HBO, where they give people a little bit of freedom. So if you want to tell a 62-minute story, fine. If you want to tell a 49-minute story, that's fine as well. They seem to let them breathe a little bit more. So Sopranos does have this 1 minute, 36-second intro. Game of Thrones is like a good solid minute and a half as well. And I think you'll find that House of Dragon, that's a long one as well, if I remember rightly, isn't it? So I think HBO gives a little bit more freedom, and it wants to give you that premium effect. But then you've got Netflix, which is just press this button and you don't have to hear fuck all. So why would they spend any money on that?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Have you watched Peaky Blinders, Andy? I don't know if I've ever asked you this.
I've seen the first episode and that's it.
And didn't turn you on? You didn't like it?
It was okay, and then I missed the second one and never went back to it.
Have you seen this, Stu?
Yeah.
All the way through?
Not the final season now.
What? That absolutely disgusts me.
Because what happened was, it had been so long, and then I went to watch it, and then circumstances, and then I never got around to watching it again. So I thought, well, I might as well. And funnily enough, since I bought that Quest 3, there's a Peaky Blinders VR game on there with everyone in it.
That was all right.
Voiced as well. So now it's back on the docket again to watch, because I love Peaky Blinders. Brilliant. And obviously we've got to get the film as well, don't we, eventually?
Well, yeah. And I mentioned it because of Red Right Hand, which is a class song by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. But we won't mention it now. We'll talk about it as a question until Andy's... I mean, it's a big commitment to ask him to see it, watch all of it for one question on a podcast. But I think the end of Peaky Blinders might be the most satisfying end to a TV show, when when the complete thing is finished, I've ever seen. And I'm just going to let that hang. So people message me individually if you've seen the ending of Peaky Blinders, please, if you're listening to this, and let me know what you thought about the ending, because I thought, as a piece to end something, it was as good as you're ever going to get it, because there's always something like, everything always ends like tails off. Game of Thrones and everything else, always tails off at the end. But I thought Peaky Blinders was excellent. But there we go. Right then. So we're going to move on to a new feature. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But hopefully you'll enjoy this. It is Album Club. So we're going to, on MusiCast, one of us is going to recommend an album that the other two will listen to and give our thoughts on it and induct it into the Album Club Hall of Fame or Shame, depending on if we liked or didn't like it. And I mentioned earlier, I went to see Ice Nine Kills earlier in the week. Now, for those that aren't into Ice Nine Kills, they are a band from Boston, Massachusetts. Heavy metal band, heavily inspired by horror films, and they're, as a base starting point, their YouTube channel is well worth a visit, because even if you're not into like the music side of it, I think you'll get some joy from the YouTube. It harks back, and their plagiarism of actual like classic horror films is through the roof there. I went to go see them at the TheatreCore in Wolverhampton last week. I had a great time. I saw them at Download a year earlier, and I only kind of got into them, stumbled across them by chance, looking at bands at Download, and I thought, right, I need to see a few more bands, because if I only see Metallica and Cancer bands, it's a lot of money to spend on tickets. So started looking, and I found this band, and I saw one of the songs, the videos was a play of American Psycho and Christian Bale and everything else. So eventually got into them. To give a bit of context, they've gone through a lot of band member changes. The singer is the only remaining band member from their initial lineup back in 2000. They were like verging on pop punk when they first came out. And I think this is one of those bands that I mentioned they're a bit more like a merch first, band second kind of thing. And I think that shows in the amount of time and money they're putting into their YouTube stuff, if I'm honest. And I think they've probably found their niche musically, and now they're running with that now. And it's even mentioned in one of the songs, but we'll come back to that in a bit. And they've kind of got into this stable of being TheatreCore, they've called themselves, where it's about a stage show for them, but not in like a Bruce Springsteen way, loads of fireworks, but having like props on stage and stuff like that. And they've got various different albums out at the moment, but their most recent album is the Silver Scream Part 2, which is what I asked you two fine gentlemen to listen to. The Silver Scream 2, Welcome to Horrorwood. And what they've done in the past is they've released an album and they've done accompanying videos to create a story. And the Silver Scream was part of that, and now the Welcome to Horrorwood series exists as well. But this is the most recent effort from Ice Nine Kills. So Stu, I'll start with you because you're the least rock friendly, I guess, out of the two of you, I think. Akin to more Bewitched than anything else. Give me your thoughts initially with the first thing that you heard. And were there any songs that you actually liked on the album?
I mean, that's not strictly true, is it? I mean, I've got a limit of this stuff. And when it gets to short tongue, and when it goes a bit silly, when it's just noise, I don't like that. I don't appreciate it. It's not my thing. But astonishingly enough, I really enjoyed this. I don't know how, but when it finished, there was, because I did it through YouTube Music because, well, it's free. And so I just left it there, and I was doing the ironing, like I said, like I suggested. This was going to be my... And it was music that I knew about the YouTube stuff. I thought, no, I'll do it properly. I'll just listen to it. And I actually really enjoyed it. And there were some songs on there that were screaming, which were not fun. Mainly, I've got them here. The Funeral one.
Yep.
I've still got it loaded up.
Funeral Arrangements, that was...
Yes, and... The other one, Take Your Pick, did not like them. But the Hip to Be Scared, the one about the one that you mentioned, the American Psycho one, I thought that was really good. But actually, Rainy Day, I loved that. I thought that was excellent.
Yeah,
and it kind of reminded me of like early Feeder in a way. But it went from when it finished. It just goes and the algorithm goes and finds something else. And he started playing Fall Out Boy afterwards. And I thought, okay, well, that makes sense then. This is why I like some of this stuff, because I like that stuff. And it's all the old Planet Days.
Yeah, it does kind of slot into like at parts, because there's extremely heavy bits to this album, but then there's melodic sing-along, almost verging on boy band elements to it as well. And it slots in really nicely with a few different kind of genres, really, from that respect. That's kind of why I like it. Like, you know, the song that you mentioned there, pardon me, sorry, Funeral Arrangements, I really like, from a purely like heavy metal version. But Take Your Pick, I'm not saying it's like too heavy for me or anything, but I like, in the grand scheme of what that album is, which is quite fun, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, I don't think it really has a place in this album, really. What about you, Andy? Were there any songs that you liked or really didn't like off it?
Loads. Like, genuinely, I've written them all down. There's 5 songs I didn't like. The rest I thought were really good, fun. And I noticed the theme. When it's a film I either don't know or don't like, I didn't like the song accompanying it.
Yeah.
And it immediately, so it was that just turned me off, that song. And I don't know if there's like a connection there or what, but yeah, so looking back, A Rash Decision, which is based on Cabin Fever.
Yeah.
Too screamy, didn't like it, couldn't get through that one. Assault and Batteries I thought was fucking brilliant, because when he started doing the Child's Play, the chant they do in that, I was like, I'm invited. I love Child's Play. You know, I mean, we spoke about it before, and one of my favourite series of films. So that just got me hooked into it. And I'm like, okay, I'm here, I'm back. Followed up with the shower scene, big fan of Hitchcock's Psycho. And the video to that, watch it, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Funeral arrangements, excellent. Then Rainy Day did nothing for me, and I don't like the Resident Evil film either. Hip to be Scared. And then you have the Huey Lewis breakdown as well. This is superb. But I got Take Your Pick, I think was the worst song on the album.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it was just screamy bollocks throughout it, and I really didn't like it.
What about Ex Mortis? I had that was my favourite on the tick marks, and I can't even remember it now.
Yeah, it's really fun that, because it's the Evil Dead, and again you have like the Evil Dead stuff in it, and the cutouts of them saying groovy and all that kind of stuff like in it. Like it's those little touches that make some of the songs really appeal to me. On the flip side, there's other stuff like I didn't realise. So there's a song off, I think it's the first Silver Scream, that I had no idea. Like it's like a ballad, like it's one of Sam's favourite songs, and I had no idea. It's called A Grave Mistake. It's the kind of song your missus would be into, no offence to any lovely ladies out there. But it's about the crow, and I had no idea. I had no idea until then. They played it live, and then they did the audio to when she's saying, "Oh, and sometimes a crow leads the way," whatever the bollocks was that she says at the start of the film. And yeah, it's like when you hear those little snippets of things that hark you back to a film, like the American Nightmare off that album is about Nightmare on Elm Street, and you hear it and you're like, oh god, I get it all of a sudden. Yeah, it's fun, really, really good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sorry Matt, I was just saying some like really interesting bits, because like in the Psycho, the shower scene song, and it's thinking about love and all this stuff that you don't quite associate with that film, but they found an angle to the movie that I would never have found myself watching it, and they explore that in the song, and I just found it so fascinating.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like there is some guff on it, and I think like I wouldn't necessarily bother with, and if I was making a playlist, I'd kind of pick and choose a couple of them. Like they do a cover of Stacey's Mom called Jason's Mom, and it's dreadful. Like it's really bad. And they do a cover of Can't Help Falling in Love with You, the Elvis one. Again, not fantastic really. Pardon me. But in terms of this album, yeah, I mean, I guess Stu, the measure it would you recommend it to a friend?
I mean, I couldn't recommend the whole thing, but I could recommend at least 2/3 of it. Mm-hmm. Especially to people who like Tenacious D, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't know what this is. And my brother, I think he'd actually enjoy it. I think he would. Because he's like me, he doesn't like the screaming. But it was fun enough. And I think I am going to go and watch the YouTube things later now. So yeah, amazingly, yeah, I would do.
Yeah, I think if for the same reasons, Andy, that you mentioned about this album, listen to the Silver Scream as well, because it's exactly the same. And some of the films from that, so you got cinematic inspiration from start to finish. Actually, no, I'm not going to tell you, because I think part of the fun is realising it as well. So I'm not going to say. But there's loads on the Silver Scream as well. But would you recommend it to a friend, most importantly, Andy?
Sort of. Like, I'd recommend it to you and Adam Price, who was on this podcast with us before. But obviously, I imagine Price already knows about these, and obviously you do. But I was trying to think, like, what kind of person would like this that might not know about it? So this is the part where I said I'm going to mention 2 bands that might piss you off. They sound like if Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco was the lead singer of My Chemical Romance and spent his childhood watching slasher movies. Is that
spot on?
Probably fair and not offensive at all.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. I think like throw a bit more distortion on it, and you're probably absolutely spot on. To be fair, yeah.
it's got that showy campness to it, as well as actually being quite technically good in parts. The main thing I don't like about the songs I don't like is they felt a little bit Guitar Hero-y. Like, they can do the diddly biddly music, that kind of stuff, and they really wanted to show you that they could. But the others, like the 2/3 that I did like, I think I would recommend to most people who like anything like that. Yeah,
it was like rock musical theatre in a way. Some of it.
Yeah, and that's what I think appeals to me the most, because it doesn't scratch the itch of heaviness enough. There are heavier bands like Alpha Wolf and other bands that I listen to purely for that side of it if I need that. But it does scratch the itch of, like, creatively, I guess, and like the film side of it and everything else. So yeah, I really enjoy it. But I think the most interesting question, and one that I'm sure will throw a debate in their own community if they somehow get a handle on this, Andy, is what do you think the typical Ice Nine Kill fan looks like?
I mean, I imagine they're a little bit studenty looking, probably a bit overweight, but also like quite flamboyant. I imagine they dress like they will wear what you'd associate someone like a theatre kid would wear, but it'll be all in black and grey, if that makes sense. So they'll be flamboyant, but in muted colours. I think would be the thing. They'd obviously pale and probably have like some kind of face paint on half of their face for some reason, like Darby Allin for some reason.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sort of what I'm. Yeah.
What about you, Stu?
Because this was even a question at all, I'm thinking, is this like Alan Carr is the answer? Because are they embracing the flamboyant side of it? And are they going to turn up wearing a suit and skinny trousers with no socks? That kind of like prime hipster, but with long hair and beard. I don't know. I was genuinely intrigued because I was listening to it. I think you can't just say, "Oh, the usual people turn up in the Gifford," because I don't think there would be, because it's too specialist for this. So I have no idea.
Well, what I can tell you from being in the circle seating, from my view, even though the music is quite heavy, it looked like one of the safer metal gigs. And then you realise that, like, I don't know why, but the average height of an Ice Nine Kills fan must be about 5'5". Even I would tower over an Ice Nine Kill average fan. Yeah, it was quite safe. It's a lot of like younger girls that are there as well, because of the whole, like, the singer, I think, fancies himself quite a lot. And he has that Panic at the Disco-esque campness about him as well that makes him a bit of a sex symbol, at least in his own head. Yeah, you're not too far off, Andy, if I'm honest with you. The support band did something that made me cringe a little bit. He was like, this song goes out to anyone with neurodiversity, and the entire crowd went, I was like, oh, yeah. Like, listen, we're all very, I'd like to think we're quite progressive as people, but this was like one of those, I know what this band's doing. Don't fuck about with this. Like you know your audience here, what you're trying to do here, so pack it in. But yeah, Andy, you were pretty much spot on, really, with your assessment there of the average Ice Nine Kills fan. There we go. So that is the Silver Scream. Welcome to Horrorwood, inducted into the Cage Fighting MusiCast album club. So every time we do a MusiCast episode, we'll suggest an album. But if there's something that you desperately out there, dear listener, want us to listen to that you think will be outside of our sphere of consciousness, then please let us know and we'll listen to it. And you know, if we brutally murder an album that you love, and you've only got yourself to blame, really. But there we go. But that is it for a MusiCast episode. It's been really nice to speak to you two again, and hopefully, as I said, I'll be back into regular podcasting soon enough. What have we got coming up, Andy, over the next couple of weeks? Have we got anything in the diary?
Next week will be first week of the month, so it's a question cast. We need to pick a film to watch and discuss, and Nick Cage one, Stu. Yeah, we'll sort that out in the group chat anyway. Got that, and then I think we'll have a look at what's going on in the cinema, and then we've got a second half of the year preview, and we'll fit in a Gamescast as well. Because I need to hear what's going on in the world of esports. So that's your challenge, is to put a podcast together for that one, Stu.
Something to do with virgins and deodorant and something like that, or something along those lines. I can't remember what it was exactly. Yeah, something like that. I'm sure Ash Dolan can give us the 411 and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, at Cage Fighting Pod on the socials, as always, I really appreciate your listenership. And just just interactions on Twitter. You interact with us, it appears on somebody else's feed and stuff like that. Yeah, it all adds just little bits to our listenership and just getting us a bit of growth in the big bad world of podcasting. So thank you very much for everybody that gets involved with us always. We really appreciate you. For Stu, if you'd like to say goodbye.
Yeah. Now, before we do, you did the charity thing, Dean Marsden did the charity thing, and our new listener Jess did the Race for Life 5K today as well. So excellent work. Well done.
She did. Well done.
Oh, fantastic.
So yes. I see everyone's doing good things apart from me. Goodbye, everyone.
Andy, if you'd like to say goodbye.
Yeah, I've done fuck all for charity as well. So see you later.
And it's goodbye from me. And remember, party on, dudes.